The sky above Outpost Z-17 turned red without warning. A fireball streaked through the clouds, tearing across the quiet blue before vanishing behind the snowy hills. Mason dropped his wrench. He had been fixing a weather scanner on the roof when the alarm blared across the station. He ran inside, checked the radar, and saw one word flashing on the screen. Object detected. Impact confirmed. Mason was the only human stationed on this lonely moon base. He had been living alone for 7 months, fixing satellites, collecting weather data, and sending weekly reports back to Earth. Nothing ever happened out here. Until now, he jumped into a snow rover and followed the coordinates. The icy wind cut across the flat land like a blade. After a long, bumpy ride through frozen valleys and broken stone, Mason found the crash site. A trail of smoke rose into the sky. He drove closer and saw the ground cracked open in a perfect circle. At the center lay a massive pad metallic, black and red, humming softly. Steam hissed from the sides. One door was half open, its edge glowing from heat. Mason stepped out slowly, holding his scanner in one hand. The readings were strange, too much energy, too much heat, and something organic inside. He approached the door. His boots crunched on burnt snow. He leaned in and pulled the hatch fully open. Then he froze. Inside was a woman, but not a human. She was enormous. Her body was twice the size of his. Her skin was a soft purple gray, glowing faintly under the dim light. Her arms were muscular, her legs thick and powerful. Her face, though alien, looked young and beautiful. Her long black hair was tangled around her neck. She had cuts on her arms and a deep bruise across her ribs. She was unconscious, barely breathing. Mason didn't hesitate. He pulled out the emergency blanket from his bag and wrapped her as best he could. Lifting her was nearly impossible. Her body was heavy, dense, and freezing cold. He didn't know how, but he dragged her to the rover using rope and sheer will. He drove back fast. The storm was picking up. Snow hit the windshield. The cabin lights flickered as he parked and dragged her inside. The room was small, barely enough for one person, but he made space on the floor and laid her near the heater. Hours passed. Mason cleaned her wounds carefully. Her skin was smooth but warm now. Her chest rose and fell slowly. She was alive. In the middle of the night, she opened her eyes. They were golden bright, wide, and full of fear. She tried to sit up, but winced. Mason raised his hands. "You're safe. I found you in the snow," he said slowly, softly. She stared at him. Her lips moved. Her voice was weak. "You're human." Mason nodded. "Yes, I won't hurt you." Her hands tightened on the blanket. Her next words were a whisper. "Don't use me. I'm not breeding material. I'm too big." Mason blinked. "What? What do you mean?" She didn't answer. She looked away, silent, ashamed. Mason brought her water. She stared at the cup for a long time before reaching for it. Her hands were large, fingers thick, nails sharp, but she held the cup gently. After she drank, she whispered, "Where am I?" "You crashed on a frozen moon. I'm alone here, but I won't let anything happen to you." She gave him a long look. "Should have left me," she said. "I'm not wanted." Mason shook his head. "No one deserves to die alone. In the snow, not even a stranger. Not even a giant stranger." Her lips twitched. It was almost a smile. She pulled the blanket tighter and leaned against the wall. Her eyes began to close again. Before sleep took her, she said one last thing. "My name is Velshera. I'm not what you expect." Mason replied, "My name's Mason. You're safe here, Velshera, I promise." And in that small, cold cabin, two strangers from different worlds began something no one could have predicted. Not war, not fear, but a quiet beginning. Something was changing. And it all started with a crash and a choice. To save a stranger too big for the world around her. The morning light barely touched the cabin floor, but Mason was already awake. He sat at the edge of his bed, staring at the closed door where Velshera lay resting. He had checked her pulse once during the night, careful not to wake her. She had survived the crash, but now came the harder part. What was she doing here? Who hurt her? And why had she said those strange words about being too big and not for breeding? Mason walked into the other room with a fresh thermal blanket in his arms. As he pushed the door open, he froze. Velshara was awake and standing. She had pulled herself up beside the heater and was stretching her tall frame. Her head almost touched the ceiling. Her long legs barely fit inside the space. The blanket Mason had given her the night before now wrapped around her like a towel, barely covering her body. Her eyes met his. "I broke your chair," she said. Pointing to a splintered wooden seat on the floor, Mason looked down and let out a short laugh. "It's just a chair. Build another one." Velshara frowned. "No, it's because of me. I am. It's too much for everything." Mason didn't know what to say, so he stepped closer and offered her the new blanket. "Here, this one's bigger. I made it from 2 stitched together." She took it and nodded quietly. She turned away and wrapped it around herself, trying. To hide more of her form, she sat down on the cabin floor, crossing her legs. The floor creaked under her weight. "My people," she began slowly, "designed females like me for strength. For war, but not for connection." Mason pulled up a crate and sat across from her. "What do you mean? I was born on Shirvana. It's a hot world. Mountain tribes. The females are trained young to become breeders or warriors. Some are chosen for both. But me, I was always larger than the others. The males looked at me and said I was too strong, too tall, too wide. I was told my body would crush a mate." She lowered her head. "So they sent me to the outcast ships, to serve in breeding stations if anyone would take me. I was always sent back, unfit, unwanted." Mason listened quietly. The snow outside whispered against the walls. Inside, the only warmth came from the heater and the silence between them. "You said you're not breeding material," he said carefully, "but you're still alive. That means something." Velshara looked up. Her golden eyes shimmered. "Being alive doesn't mean being accepted," she said. "Was captured by raiders during transport. My ship was shot down. Escaped in that pod and landed here. I thought I would freeze before anyone found me." "You almost did," Mason said, "but you didn't." Velshara leaned her head against the wooden wall. Her skin glowed slightly in the low light. "I still don't understand why you helped me, why you risked your life." Mason shrugged. "Because you needed help, and you were alone." As me, that answer made her pause. She shifted slightly and looked at the tiny room around her. "Everything here is small. I don't fit." "Not yet," Mason said with a small grin. "But I can change that." She raised one brow. "You can." "I build things, tools, shelves, beds. If something's too small, I make it bigger." Her smile returned just for a second. Later that day, Mason brought her some clean clothes he had in storage. They were human-sized, of course. She tried to put on the shirt, but it tore at the shoulders. The pants only reached halfway up her thighs. She stood there, arms crossed, eyes burning with embarrassment. "I told you. I don't belong in your world." Mason looked at her, then looked at the torn fabric. "No, these clothes don't belong in your world. You're fine." Velshara blinked. He walked over to a chest, pulled out a large blanket, and cut slits in it to make a robe. "Try this. It's not fancy, but it's warm." She took it, slowly put it on, and sat back down. For the first time, she looked comfortable. As night came again, Mason lit a small fire in the steel barrel stove. The heat filled the cabin. He sat down with a bowl of stew and handed one to Velshara. She tasted it carefully, then nodded. "This is good," she whispered. "No one's ever made food for me before." Mason smiled. "Then this is a first." She looked into the flames. "I still think I'm too big for your world, Mason. Too big for a mate. Too big for a home," he replied without hesitation. "Maybe. Your world didn't make space for you, but I will." Velshara didn't answer. But the look in her eyes said everything. She wasn't just surviving now. She was starting to feel seen. The snowstorm came hard that night. The wind howled like a hungry animal, shaking the cabin walls and rattling the windows. Mason set extra logs into the stove, keeping the fire hot. But no matter how high the flames rose, the cold still crept. And Velshara sat in the corner, wrapped in her stitched-together robe, arms crossed over her chest. She was quiet. She had been all day. Mason watched her from his chair. He had seen this silence before on human soldiers, long after the battlefield was over. A silence that held more than words. A silence filled with shame, memory, and hurt. "Your arm's still bleeding," Mason said softly. Velshara didn't move. "It needs stitching," he added. Still no answer. He stood, picked up the medkit, and walked over. When he knelt in front of her, she finally turned her head. Her golden eyes locked with his. "It's full of something old and heavy. You can't fix what's already broken," she said. Mason opened the kit and pulled out the antiseptic. "I can try." She hesitated, then slowly held out her arm. The cut was long across her bicep, surrounded by dark bruises. Her skin, though tough, was sensitive. As Mason cleaned the wound, Velshara winced. "Sorry," he said. "You're the first to ever say that," she whispered. He paused. "Say what?" "Sorry," she repeated. "Back on my planet, pain was normal. If you cried, they told you to stop. If you bled, they told you to heal alone. No one said sorry, no one cared." Mason didn't know what to say, so he just kept cleaning her arm gently. He worked carefully, his fingers firm but kind. She watched him closely. "Your hands," she said, "are smaller than mine, but they feel stronger." He smiled. "They fixed a lot of things over the years? Even things like me?" she asked. He looked up. "You're not a thing, and you're not broken." Velshara's throat moved as she swallowed. Her chest rose with a deep breath. When he finished stitching the wound, he wrapped it with soft bandages and stepped back. "There," he said. "Not perfect, but better." She looked at her arm, touched the bandage, then looked back at him. Her voice was low now. "No one's ever touched me like that. Not with care. Not with kindness." Mason sat back down, not far from her. "You deserve care, just like anyone." She leaned against the wall again, eyes half closed. "I've seen humans before, traitors, soldiers, scientists. None of them treated my kind with respect. They looked at us like monsters, like animals. You're different." "I've seen good and bad humans," Mason said. "Same with aliens. But I don't judge people by size or skin. I judge by heart." She stared into the fire. "Then, I think your heart is very strange, Mason," he chuckled. "I'll take that as a compliment." Thunder cracked outside and the power flickered. The light shut off. The room went dark. Velshara gasped. Mason felt her hand suddenly grab his arm, tight, trembling. She pulled him close. "It's all right," he said. "Just a power cut. I hate the dark," she whispered. "Reminds me of the pods, the cages." Mason didn't move away. He let her hold on. "You're not in a cage anymore," he said. "You're safe." Slowly her grip loosened, but she didn't let go. The firelight glowed softly in the dark. Mason could feel the warmth of her skin beside him. It was strange how someone so large, so strong, could tremble like a child in the dark. He reached out and placed his hand on hers. She looked down at their hands, his small fingers resting on hers. She didn't pull away. "Mason," she said quietly, "why do you keep helping me?" "Because I want to," he said. "But why?" He looked into her glowing eyes. "Because when I see you, I don't see a mistake. I see someone trying to survive. Someone strong who still deserves love." Her breath caught in her throat. Silence that followed wasn't cold this time. It was full, heavy with meaning. "I should sleep," she said finally. Mason nodded and stood. "Good night, Velshara." But as he turned, her voice stopped him. "Wait." He turned back. She was still holding his hand. "Just stay there until I sleep." Mason sat back down beside her, and that's how they stayed, the human and the giant alien woman. Side by side in the firelight, her fear melting with each breath. In the stillness, something began to grow. Not just trust, not just safety. Something deeper, something neither of them had ever known. Asterisk, the wind outside howled through the mountain pass, covering the cabin in thick layers of snow. But inside, the fire burned strong, casting flickers of gold across the wooden walls. Mason had repaired the power by morning, but the heater was still struggling to keep up. He stepped into the main room, carrying a blanket under one arm and a cup of hot tea in the other. Velshara sat near the stove, her large body curled tightly, knees drawn up, arms around her legs. She was silent, staring at the dancing flames. "You didn't sleep well?" Mason said, as he handed her the tea. She took it, her massive hands curling around the mug carefully. "I never do when there's thunder," she replied. "It reminds me of the breeding ships." Mason sat across from her. "She said they kept you in cages?" She nodded once. "Dark metal rooms, no windows, just noises, heavy doors. Males walked past like buyers at a market. Most didn't even stop. Some laughed, some looked scared. I was always passed over." She sipped the tea slowly, the heat rising in the quiet room. "My body," she continued, "wasn't what they wanted. Too strong, too big. They said I'd hurt anyone I touched." Mason's eyes never left her. "But that's not true." She looked at him, confused. "You stitched that blanket for me," he said. "You helped fix my radio. You bandaged my finger when I cut it 2 days ago. Nothing about you is dangerous." Velshara held the tea closer, hiding her face behind the rim. But her voice came through soft and trembling. "I thought kindness was something I'd never feel." Mason stood and picked up a thick blanket from the corner. "Come on," he said. "The room is still cold. Let's move closer to the fire." She hesitated, but followed. He spread the blanket out in front of the stove and sat down, legs crossed. Velshara sat beside him, taking up most of the space without meaning to. Mason reached out and pulled part of the blanket over her side. "We'll share," he said. She blinked. "You don't mind?" "You need it more than I do." A long silence passed. Snow beat against the roof. The fire crackled. Then, slowly, carefully, Velshara leaned toward him. Her shoulder brushed against his. "I've never shared a blanket with anyone," she whispered. "You have now," Mason said. Her body was warm, strong but gentle. Her breathing slowed. He could feel her calming down. He didn't say anything else, just sat with her in the quiet. Minutes passed. Then her voice came again. Softer this time, Mason. "Do humans like small females?" He looked at her. "Some do, some don't. It depends on the person." She nodded. "Because I've heard humans call aliens like me beasts." Mason's tone didn't change. "You're not a beast. You don't think I'm ugly?" It turned to face her fully. "Velshara, you are beautiful. Maybe not in the way your people wanted, or what humans expect, but you're strong, kind, graceful, and smart. That's real beauty." She looked away, eyes blinking fast. "You don't know what those words mean to me." Mason touched her hand. "Then tell me." She took a deep breath, then placed her large hand over his. "I used to dream of someone like you," she said, voice shaking. "Someone who didn't flinch when I walked into a room. Someone who didn't treat me like a weapon. I thought I was too much. I thought I would never be held, never be wanted." Mason leaned in, just a little. "You're not too much." Velshara's voice dropped to a whisper. "Then hold me." He hesitated, but only for a second. Then he shifted under the blanket and wrapped both arms around her. She froze at first, stunned by the contact. Then her arms moved too, slowly. Unsure at first, then firm. Her whole body trembled against his. Mason rested his head against her chest, listening to the heavy beat of her alien heart. She rested her cheek on top of his head. "Is this what it means?" she asked. "To be accepted?" "Yes," Mason said. "And it means I care about you. No matter your size, no matter your past." She held him tighter. That night, neither of them moved. They stayed wrapped together in front of the fire, her body curled protectively around his. His warmth pressed against hers. It wasn't about passion. It wasn't about duty. It was the first night. She didn't cry herself to sleep. And the first night he didn't feel alone on this cold, forgotten moon. The sky stayed gray for 3 days. Thick clouds hung over the icy moon, and the cold never left the air. But inside the small wooden cabin, something had changed. There was warmth now, real. Warmth not just from the fire, but from the way. Velshara and Mason looked at each other. They didn't speak much that morning. They didn't need to. Their hands brushed as they passed plates. They shared tea in silence, smiling without saying why. Velshara moved around the cabin with more confidence. Her back was straight, her steps had purpose. She had always walked like a warrior. Now, she walked like someone who belonged. Mason watched her while carving wood for a new chair, one that wouldn't break under her weight. Velshara was by the window, humming softly, fixing a cracked tool using her thick fingers in incredible patience. "You're good with your hands?" Mason said, glancing up. She gave him a small smile. "I was trained to fix battle armor, but no one ever cared. They only looked at my body." "I'm looking too," Mason said. She raised a brow. "Not just at your body," he added quickly. "I see your strength, your skill, your kindness." Velshara looked away but not. Because she was shy, something in her eyes had changed. She was listening now, not resisting. Later that afternoon, the storm finally ended. The sky cleared and sunlight poured through the clouds. For the first time in days, Mason stepped outside. "Come with me," he said. Velshara hesitated. "I'm not good with open spaces." "You don't have to be good," Mason replied. "You just have to be you." She followed him into the snow. The light made her skin glow like silver fire. She looked up at the wide sky, blinking slowly. Mason picked a spot near a frozen lake where the sunlight sparkled over the ice. "This place is beautiful," she whispered. "So are you," Mason said. She turned to him. "You don't have to lie." "I'm not," he said. "You're more than what they told you. You're more than what you believe." Velshara stepped closer. The snow crunched under her feet. Her shadow covered him as she stood before him, tall and unsure. "You really think I'm not broken?" she asked. He reached up and touched her arm. "I think you're stronger than anyone I've ever met." "And what if I told you I wanted to be touched again?" she whispered. Mason didn't answer with words. He just stepped forward and placed his hand on her waist. Firm, respectful, warm. Velshara's breathing changed. She placed her hands on his shoulders, careful not to grip too tight. Her lips trembled as she leaned down, and their foreheads touched. "I don't know what this is," she said. "It's not breeding," Mason whispered. "It's not survival, it's connection. I don't want to hurt you. You won't." She lowered her face slowly, and their lips met. Her kiss was soft, gentler than Mason thought possible from someone so strong. He held her face, tracing the lines of her jaw, and she pulled him into her arms. When they parted, Velshara was breathing faster, her chest rising and falling. "I've never kissed anyone," she said. "Then I'm lucky to be your first." She smiled, truly smiled for the first time. That night, they didn't return to the cabin right away. They stayed outside beneath the stars. Velshara lay back on a blanket over the snow, pulling Mason close beside her. Her body was large and powerful, but she moved with grace. She held Mason as if he were a gift she didn't deserve, but would protect with everything she had. "I don't know what comes next," she said. Mason rested his head on her shoulder. "Whatever it is, we'll face it together." She turned to look at him. "Even if I can't give you children, even if I was built wrong." "I didn't fall in love with you to get something from you," Mason replied. "I fell for your heart, your strength, your soul." She went quiet, then slowly she placed his hand on her stomach. "If I could give you life, I would. Not because of duty, not because of species, but because you made me feel whole." Mason's voice was steady. "If it ever happens, it'll be because it's meant to be. And if it doesn't, I'll still choose you." Velshara closed her eyes, holding him tight. She had been bred for war, but now, for the first time in her life, she felt like she had a reason to live. The snow had melted into soft slush near the cabin walls. Spring sunlight, weak but warm, crept across the frozen land. Mason was out back, fixing solar panels, while Velshara moved carefully inside, sweeping the wooden floor. Her steps were gentle now, her hands steady. Something was changing inside her body. She felt it when she woke. Her skin had turned warmer, almost too warm. Her heartbeat felt deeper. She felt tired, but not sick, just different. It had started 3 mornings ago. Her hunger increased. Her mood shifted fast. And now she couldn't explain it, but her lower stomach felt alive. She stared down at herself. Her hand moved to her belly, just under the robe Mason had sewn together for her. It couldn't be. She walked slowly to the scanner Mason kept in the back room. It was an old medical tool, half-functional, but good enough for reading life signs. She sat down, adjusted the belt, and ran the test. The machine blinked once, then again. Then the screen lit up and stayed on. Velshara leaned forward. The image was small, faint but clear. Her breath caught. Her hands trembled. Her heart pounded like thunder. There was a second heartbeat. Inside her, she sat frozen for a full minute. Then her eyes filled with tears. She didn't cry loudly, just quietly, with her arms wrapped around her knees, rocking. Slowly as the image stayed on the screen, she didn't understand how. She had been told her body would never allow this, that she could not carry life. She had believed it for years. And now life was growing inside her, Mason, she whispered. He wasn't in the room. She stood up quickly, ran to the front door, and burst outside. Mason was working beside the solar rig. He looked up, surprised. Is something wrong? She held the scanner in her arms like it was gold. Come inside. He followed her in. Confused but calm, she handed him the scanner. Look, Mason stared at the screen. At first he didn't understand. Then he saw the pulse. A second rhythm beneath hers. His mouth opened slightly. Is that? Velshara nodded. Yes, that's real. He looked up at her. You're pregnant. She shook her head, still overwhelmed. I don't understand. It shouldn't be. Possible. He stepped closer and took her hand, but it is. Velshara's voice trembled. They said my body was built wrong, that I could never grow life. They were wrong, Mason said. She couldn't hold it in anymore. She broke into a sob and buried her face in his chest. Mason wrapped his arms around her, holding her close, letting her cry. His hands moved across her back slowly, steady. As always, you gave me something I thought I'd never have, she whispered. No, Mason said. You gave it to both of us. They stood together for a long time. Later that evening, Mason built a small fire outside. He set up a bench and they sat beneath the stars, shoulders touching. Velshara rested her hand on her stomach. What do we do now? We prepare, Mason said. We make this place safe. We plan. We make space for someone new. Velshara nodded slowly. I don't want this child to be afraid like I was. They won't be, Mason said. Not while we're here, she smiled faintly. Will it be strong like me? Or quiet like you? Mason laughed. Hopefully both. Then her voice changed, softer now. If the others come. What if the world finds us? What if they want to take me away? Mason reached into his coat and pulled out a small device. It was a communicator. Placed it on the bench between them. I've had this for months, he said. I never sent a message back. Didn't want them to come. Why? Because this is the only place where I've ever felt whole. Velshara looked at him. Then don't send it. I won't, he said. Not unless we have no choice. She rested her head against his shoulder. I was ready to die in that pod. Alone. Forgotten. But you didn't, Mason said. You lived. And now you're creating life. She closed her eyes, holding his hand. I used to think my body was too big to be wanted. It's too strong to be loved. Too strange to ever carry a child. And now, he asked. She opened her eyes. Now I know. My body is exactly what it needed to be, to find you, to protect life, to love. Mason turned and kissed her forehead. Not just carrying a child, Velshara, he said. Ow! You're carrying hope. For both of us. The sky above the valley was crystal clear. The snow had melted into fresh spring grass. Small alien flowers peeked through the soil near the cabin porch. Velshara stood barefoot in the grass, her hand resting on her round stomach. Her body looked even stronger now, but not like a weapon anymore. She looked like a protector, a mother. Inside the cabin, Mason finished welding steel panels to the roof. He had reinforced the walls, widened the doors, and built a crib by hand. It didn't look like something from Earth or Shirvana. It was something new, something from both of them. Velshara's pregnancy had changed everything. Her body moved slower now, but with more grace. Her skin glowed brighter. Her eyes were always alert, watching, listening, and Mason stayed by her side every day, every hour, never letting her feel alone. Then, one morning, a red light blinked on the cabin console, a signal. A human ship was coming. Velshara saw Mason's face freeze. He didn't speak. He just stared at the blinking light. "Who is it?" she asked. "I don't know," he said. "But it's military frequency, Earth fleet." Her breath grew shallow. "They can't take me. They'll study me. They'll test the child. I've seen what they do to beings like me." Mason didn't wait. He grabbed his toolkit and ran outside. He pulled down the antenna, snapped wires, crushed the transmitter. The light on the console went dark. Velshara rushed out. "They'll still track the old crash site." "Then we'll be ready," Mason said. For 2 days they waited. On the third morning, a shadow appeared in the sky. A long, sleek vessel hovered above the trees. Engines hummed softly. Soldiers dropped to the ground in black armor, weapons raised. Mason stepped out first, arms up. "No weapons here, just me." The commander approached. "We detected life signs, non-human, possible threat." "There's no threat," Mason said. "She's not harming anyone." The soldier raised a brow. Velshara stepped forward slowly. She wore a long robe made from earth fabrics and alien threads. Her golden eyes locked with the soldiers. "I am Velshara," she said. "I crashed here months ago. I am carrying a child." The soldiers stared in silence. "This child," she added, "is half-human." Murmurs spread through the group. The commander hesitated. "Are you claiming this human? Is the father?" Velshara nodded. "I claim him, and he claims me." Mason moved to her side and held her hand. "We didn't ask for this, but we won't hide it either." The commander looked down at a device scanning both of them. He didn't speak for a long moment, and finally he stepped back. "We are not here to start trouble," he said, "but this goes beyond regulations. A report will be sent to Earth." "Send what you want," Mason said, "but she stays here." "We both do." The commander stared at him. "You're choosing to stay with her? To live away from human society?" "I've never felt more human than I do with her," Mason said. "I've never had more purpose." The soldiers didn't move. Then one of them, an older man, took a slow step forward. He removed his helmet. His face was tired, weathered. "I had a daughter once," the man said. "She died before I made it home. If she had lived, I would have done anything to protect her." He turned to the commander. "Let them be." There was a pause. Then the commander gave a nod. "No report will be filed," he said. "No further scans. No follow-up." The ship lifted off, slow and silent, disappearing into the sky. When they were gone, Velshara fell to her knees. Mason dropped beside her, wrapping her in his arms. "They're gone," he whispered. "They're really gone." She touched her belly. "The child stays with us." "Yes," Mason said. "Here, in this valley, in this home." Weeks passed. The cabin grew brighter. Mason painted stars on the ceiling of the baby's room.
Velshara
Sang songs from her planet, soft and strange. They planted food near the forest line. Life returned to the land, and then, one quiet morning, it happened. Mason heard her voice from the back room, low and serious. "It's time." He rushed to her side. Hours later, under warm firelight and wrapped in blankets, Velshara held their child in her arms. The baby was strong, with soft violet skin and eyes the color of sunrise. Not fully human, not fully alien, Something new, something beautiful. Mason sat beside them, breath caught in his throat. Velshara looked at him and whispered, "I was told my body was wrong, that I couldn't carry life." "You didn't just carry life," Mason said. "You created a future." She leaned into him, their child sleeping between them. A mother, father, a new world, all beginning from a broken pod in the snow.